What is going on, YouTube? I am Germ here, and today we have some big LEC drama to talk about. You guys know I love drama. I love talking about drama, and I know there's a lot of you guys out there that love yourself some drama as well, especially once the regular season for the LEC and LCS actually get started, actually get underway. There's not as many, crazy, interesting stories. Yeah, there's a lot of great games, and we like watching that, and it's fun seeing who's good, who's bad, all that stuff. But the off season, in between splits, right after Worlds or right after playoffs, that's when the juicy stuff starts coming out. That's when we really get hyped and excited. So when we have a bigger story to talk about during the season, those are always a little bit more fun, a little bit more exciting. So let's get right into it. This tweet from Veteran about this Invin Global article that I wouldn't have seen otherwise. He says, "This is Grabs on the limit situation." He said this kid is basically out of a job because of BDS's sheer incompetence and because he's least able to signal that incompetence to a larger audience on social media. Handle the most mature way. So this sounds like some spicy stuff to me. This sounds pretty interesting. This sounds like something that I wanted to dive deeper into, and also something that I wanted to make a video about to tell this story, because this is definitely spicy. And this tweet from Veteran, it only got 300 likes, so not a ton of people saw this. I mean, maybe I can refresh it. Maybe it's got some more likes now, but I'm pretty sure I just pulled this up. Every once in a while, I'll have stuff stored away on my computer to, talk about it later date. So yeah, it's only got 392 likes. Didn't get a ton of traction, and it's from this article where Invin is obviously talking to Grabs. This is the head coach of Team BDS, kind of about what's been going on for this team. And there's actually some more interesting stuff. So first, I wanted to talk about what happened with BDS recently. The guy asks what the end of the spring split was like BDS, and Grab says, "Usually I'm a guy that likes to take the bullet for my team," right? And obviously BDS had a very, very disappointing spring split. They had some interesting, exciting players that people were pretty hyped up about. Obviously Adam being the biggest pickup for the team after a pretty decent, or really decent, summer split into making Worlds for Fnatic. And obviously they didn't do so hot, even after picking up Grabs and Adam, finishing 9th place in the spring. So Graham says, "Hey, I usually like to take the bullet for my team. Hey, somebody needed to take the bullet." They finished almost last. I think Astralis was the only team that finished below them. But he says, "But I think I made it pretty clear that towards the end of the split, players just didn't put in the energy that they should have. Not only as rookies, but just as athletes, respecting the job they have. Therefore, we went for a Korean boot camp where we took all 10 players, academy included. We had multiple criteria. We had internal scrims, and it wasn't about just who played better. It was about behavior, who showed the most drive to take the teammates and talk about the game, trying to improve together." Now, this is very interesting. This in and of itself is pretty spicy. I'm pretty sure I've made videos and talked about before the stuff that happened about BDS towards the end of the split, where, yeah, there was players not taking it seriously, not practicing hard, not playing a ton of games. It seemed like, once they had lost a bunch of games and once they weren't going to make the playoffs, a lot of their players kind of checked out. And that's not good, especially for a bunch of young and inexperienced players who are not established at all in the LEC. Need to improve a bunch, need to get way better, and shouldn't be so worried about whether or not they're making the playoffs right now, because for BDS, this wasn't about this split, this wasn't about this year. This is a long-term thing where they're all trying to get better and improve over time, so that not only can they make the playoffs, like this year, who really cares, it's so they can compete for titles or something at some point in the future, whether it's 2-3 years from now, or whether it's even just maybe these players popping off and being sold off in the future to teams that are going to compete for titles. So super, super concerning when early on in players' careers, they are already not grinding, they are already not working hard. Early on in your career, that's when you maybe need to grind the hardest to close the gap between an ERL player and an LEC player. So they had some of that stuff going on. So what happened at the end of spring? This is what ultimately led to them going to Korea and having these open tryouts for every single position. Again, there was the whole 10-man team together, BDS Academy and BDS, competing for the summer split starting spots. And that is very, very relevant to this situation, to the story, because it kind of leads into, what's going on. So obviously from this boot camp, they ended up making a couple different moves. They ended up with, I believe, Aggressivu in the top lane over Adam, and they ended up with Erdate as support over Limit. Obviously, they must have performed pretty well at some of these boot camps, and not only must they have performed pretty well, but they must have had a good attitude. They must have been looking to improve, and maybe it says a little bit about Adam and Limit, maybe their attitudes, maybe how the coaching staff saw them or whatever. So yeah, that was kind of interesting of itself. That's kind of how we got here in the first place. Grab talks about how, I think this says here, they were really impressed with Aggressivu. He excels at taking his teammates and talking about the game, looking at somebody who takes charge, which is definitely something you need in a young and inexperienced team. So So that's cool that he saw Agresivo like that. And yeah, every spot on the main lineup was up for discussion. So that's kind of cool and kind of interesting about, what was going on with their Korean boot camp and everything. But here is the limit stuff. Here is the drama. This is where stuff starts to get extra juicy. One situation I do want to ask you about is the unfortunate situation with Limit. Towards the end of the boot camp and the offseason, he wasn't going to be a part of the main lineup. Then he also wasn't going to be a part of the academy lineup, but it was so late in the offseason that he couldn't find a team anymore. I don't want to point to you and say it's solely your fault, but BDS as an org knows how the offseason works. They know how quickly teams want to pick up other players. So can you talk about the situation or how that situation came to be where he's stuck with the shit? Kind of an interesting question. He kind of is going aggressive at grabs here, which I kind of like and respect. Also kind of weird how he's talking a little bit. I don't know. Seems a little bit strange, but overall, I think it's a good question. He says, I'm really sorry to Dino for that. Dino is Limit. And I can talk about how we're trying to fix it afterwards, but it came down to, it's probably my fault. I guess I'm the head coach, and I have to know about these things. There's a certain ERL rule where you can only have 3 veterans. I wasn't aware of it. I guess my managers weren't around and my academy coach wasn't aware either. We didn't want him to be gone from the org, right? The whole point was, as I said before, that he went down but had a chance to improve again. So again, they were saying, hey, yes, they did decide for Ardate to be the starting support for the Team BDS LEC team. But that doesn't mean they wanted Limit out of the organization. They still thought he was a good player. They still wanted to give him a chance to improve and work his way back up to the main team. But with how the ERL rules are structured and everything, if he wasn't going to be on the LEC team, they didn't have a spot to call him down. And this isn't something they knew. Before they announced Erdade as the starter and Limit was going to be the backup, they didn't know that Limit wasn't going to be able to play in Academy. And yes, this is an absolute disaster from the organization side. This is crazy. This is something that cannot happen. And again, this happened so late in the offseason that Limit was just completely fucked over. Limit did not have an opportunity to sign with he didn't really have an opportunity to sign with any other LEC teams for sure. And no other ERLs even at that point, which is just very, very crazy and very, very unfortunate. He says, then at the airport in Korea, I'm being told that this doesn't work. We know we have Adam as a veteran because he played 2 splits in the LEC and Crown Shot and Limit. Then we made the call that Limit is probably the one who could handle this disgusting situation. So I guess the rule is you can only have 2 veterans in the ERLs, and they had Adam, Crownshot, and Limit. So they had to make a decision between Adam, Crownshot, and Limit, who was going to be kicked off the team at that point. He says, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, as it should never happen, the most maturely. So again, he says they decided between Adam, Crownshot, and Limit who was going to handle this disgusting situation the most maturely, which is very, very strange. They didn't decide, hey, we have 3 veterans. Which one is the most valuable to the organization? Which one has a chance to be the best player at some point in the future? Which one, do we want to keep around? They decided who was going to handle getting kicked off the team most maturely, which is so weird and which is so strange. And I think it is interesting because as Veteran kind of hints at here, Veteran thinks it might have something to do a little bit more with social media influence. Obviously, we know Adam, very, very popular player, a French guy, K-Corp, has all those ties. He played for Fnatic. He has a big Twitter following. We've seen him get in some big drama before. Crownshot, very, very popular player, a guy tied to, Nemesis, LS, all these guys streaming, content creation. And then you have Limit. Not really a popular player, not big social media, not big content creation, nothing like that. If you kick Limit off the team, it's going to be swept under the rug. It's going to be the quietest story. If Veteran ends up tweeting about this situation, it's going to have 300 likes. Now replace Limit in this situation with Adam. Replace Limit in this situation with Crowny. And all of a sudden, this is a much bigger deal to people. But he's saying he's happy to take the responsibility if I have to. Next time, I'll make sure to read the rule books of every ERL and have them in my head. But he's the most mature person to handle it. Now, this is very, very strange. Grabs is kind of downplaying the situation like, oh, yeah, my bad. I didn't read the rule books of every single ERL. That doesn't even make sense. You don't need to read the rule books of every single ERL. You need to read the rule books of your ERL, of the LFL, of the league that BDS Academy is in. Why would you need to read the rulebook of all the ERLs? That doesn't even make sense. That sounds like you coming up with a bullshit excuse for you, your managers, your general managers, your assistant coaches, your ERL coaches, everyone in the BDS organization for not knowing the rules of the one league that your team is in, not knowing the rules for your team. You have 10 players that you are supposed to be in charge of, that you're supposed to be taking care of, and you're supposed to be looking out for, and you didn't do that. You're coming off a 9th place finish in the spring where your players quit on you at the end of the season, and then now heading into summer, you absolutely let down one of your LEC players in Limit and left him jobless, left him teamless, left him without a career, left him without a way to pay the bills, and that is pretty disgusting at the end of the day. I do believe that this mistake isn't going to happen again, but it is pretty crazy. He goes on to say it was really important for me and Duff to say in the line of being an org that gives players a second chance. You know what? Come to Berlin, you'll get your salary, and you'll still be a part of the team. He has the option to say he doesn't want to, of course, but we're giving him a chance to be an assistant coach, to be a part of scrims, to be a part of how we think about the game. He was with us in the studio. He's watching scrims with us. He gets his room to talk with players and give some input. So that is at least cool. That is at least good. They're offering him some money. They're offering him a salary. He gets to be an assistant coach and all that stuff. But still, if he wants to be a competitive player, taking a split off can be very, very detrimental to that. And then also being, kicked from his organization, benched from his organization, that's going to be bad optics. And ultimately, he doesn't have a chance to compete for that spot. He doesn't get a chance to perform in the ERLs and work his way back up to the LEC, which could probably make him a lot more money than being an assistant coach or whatever. He says this way, at least we're trying to make him not waste time and he can maybe grow from a different perspective. He's definitely still, wasting his time again if his goals are to be a professional player. He can also work on some of the issues he had. Funnily enough, the way he communicates in the game, sometimes it was really hard for him to find the right words in a correct emotional setting. I think doing it from the outside is way easier for him. Of course, that is sugarcoat him being shit on by our wrong decisions. I'm not going to try to make it look better than it is, but I think from all situations that this is the best compromise we could find. I can take responsibility for it. I was not aware of the rule. Ultimately, as a HUD coach, that is my fault. And again, Grabs is a guy I like. He's a guy who I've thought very highly of. I think he kind of got shit on too much with G2, but again, so far, the BDS situation has been a little bit of a disaster. Now, this is a long-term plan. We'll see how this plays out over 2-3 years. Spring split didn't go well. Summer split, not off to a great start. They're 0-3. They have this drama. They had the mishandling of the situation. Grabs and BDS as an organization definitely need to step it up. Really sucks for Limit. And yeah, this is kind of a story that's been flying under the radar that I just wanted to get out to you guys. But that is pretty much it for this video today. Definitely drop a like if you did enjoy it. I would appreciate that so much. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you guys think about the story. I'd love to hear your thoughts and opinions. Subscribe, stay up to date on all my latest content. Hope to catch you guys in the next one. But until then, peace.